Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining our bi-weekly vlog on important topics for brand development. Today, we'll be discussing naming that's truly global, and we're going to cover it at a high level, Brand Symbol's global naming team, and what that means for Brand Symbol and our clients. First, we'll introduce who's joining the recording today. My name is Katie Friedrich. I'm a Senior Brand Creation Specialist here at Brand Symbol, which means I'm responsible for ensuring that creative initiatives run smoothly from the start with an interactive workshop to the naming creation and through the validation stage. I also manage our global team, which is an extension of our Brand Symbol team of global namers across the world. And I'm joined with our Brand Symbol CEO, Clayton Tolley.
Thanks, Katie, for saying this is a topic we need to share with our customers and with the industry. So as Katie mentioned, my name is Clayton Tolley. I'm the president and CEO of Brand Symbol, and also CEO of another agency called SafeMark that does all the regulatory safety testing and submission to the regulatory bodies. And I'm glad to be here today.
So let's get started by discussing what it means to have truly global namers. Here's a snapshot of our namers located around the world. As you can see, we have 20 members located in 6 continents and 16 countries, with our most recent addition of Natasha from Ghana. So Clayton, can you tell us about the advantages of having global namers located around the world?
Sure, Katie. And I think that's the biggest piece is why do we have global namers, right? In 2010, when I started Brand Symbol, I realized that my previous agency or none of the agencies actually had global namers. We may have global offices, but not global namers. So I set out on a mission to create the world's largest global naming team, and we've been able to do that. So currently we have 20 namers spanning 5 continents and 16 countries. Between the group, they speak 30 plus languages or 30 languages, which is really important when you're talking about naming. With all those languages being spoken fluently by the namers, when we're really breaking down and creating new brand names, that's a lot of information and a lot of knowledge. Another component about having global teams, and I think this is something that the industry should think about, is working with agencies that have these large databases. And Brand Symbol does a fair amount of naming, so we certainly have databases, but we never turn back to our databases to look at previously generated creative that it's sitting in a database, and you've got one creative team member looking for word parts or tagged meanings behind different word parts. That is not the true way to create names. That's my opinion. And having these global namers has allowed us to create just some wonderful brand names. One of the other advantages, and I really want to emphasize this, is when working with the global namers, our clients, when they come to us, they talk about we're going to be launching this product in the US, but we also have Europe as a major market, an emphasis in Germany. That's a real key market for us. Japan, China, maybe Korea, if Latin America is involved. And when you're naming with just one naming team in one geographic location or going through databases, you don't have the ability for these namers to interact with each other and talk about what are the word parts that are consistently promoting power or energy or flexibility, viability. What are the things that are more universal, and then what are those word parts that we can take that are not overused, especially in the pharmaceutical industry, so we can actually generate a commercial message in a name that's not shut down by the regulatory agencies.
Perfect. Thank you, Clayton. And this brings us to an introduction to our global naming team members. Can you tell us a little more about what qualifies these members and how their experiences have benefited Brand Symbol's past projects?
Yeah, well, the first thing that qualifies, they're all great namers, right? I know all of these people personally, and a lot of them, actually, I should take that back. Probably 5 of them are ones that I helped recruit and get onto the network, and that was in the beginning. People like Ignacia, Kevin and Lydia, who's in Japan. But our global namers really are people that have at least 7 years of naming experience. And when I say that, when you're a namer, the first couple of years, you're just generating names. You don't understand the impact of a brand once it's a marketplace. Most of the namers have between 12 and 15 years, but none of our namers have less than 7 years of experience. And they work in a myriad of industries: pharmaceutical, automotive, animal health, business to business, naming industrial products for or industrial technologies for companies like Siemens or ABB. So these namers, they're real people in all the countries that our clients are going to market their products in. Maybe not every client and maybe not every country, but when you're developing a global name, as you can see by all the people in our network, having global namers is certainly an advantage because they know the regional issues as well as the global things we're trying to achieve with a global single brand name.
Those are some great advantages, Clayton. And can you share any interesting success stories through the global team members?
Sure, Katie. I mean, you know as well as I do just about every name that makes it into the market for the work we've been hired to do for our clients. The global team members have had, components of those names and sometimes the whole name. I'll talk about the first FDA approval that we received, a product called Plumiaz, right? So this is a diazepam is the generic name, and this was prescribed for patients that have cluster seizures, right? And Plumiaz being a compound that's well tolerated, it's been in the marketplace for 30 years. It's known by the healthcare providers to be safe. When we employed our global namers, and I'll talk about Sven, who's in Germany, he's been with us really almost since the beginning. I recruited him in 2012, and he didn't have a pharmaceutical naming background. So part of the unique delivery system in this is it's a nasal spray. It's injected to the nasal passages in a very unique way, based on a new technology. So this diazepam being a well tolerated product, and we're now naming it. Sven came up with the word plume. So if you think about a nasal delivery system and a plume, they really kind of go hand in hand. Plumia was the actual name that Sven sent over with his creative. And when it gets back to brand symbol, because we have, creative people, paralegals, people that have regulatory backgrounds and experience, well, we know that the compound is diazepam. So let's take Plumia, right? And then let's take the IEZ from the generic name from diazepam, the fanciful prefix that we can actually utilize, and it won't be rejected by the regulatory bodies. And let's use the name Plumiaz. And when we did, the client loved it, right? So they loved Plumiaz because it had the component that the healthcare providers would actually associate with diazepam. And then for the patients, I mean, if you know anyone that has seizures or cluster seizures, these people have a life-changing condition. And if they take their Plumiaz, they might be able to ward off having a seizure or certainly cluster seizures. So when we tested a name with healthcare providers as well as patients and caregivers, Plumiaz tested off the charts. Doctors knew, healthcare providers knew that it was diazepam, and that plume or the Plumiaz, the patients really liked it, and it was easy to say, spell, and remember. So just one example, but probably just about every one of our names are going to have some kind of a story behind it where the global naming team members really added value. And again, going back against databases, you can't really create this in a database when you're just sifting through to find a new name.
Thank you, Clayton. That's all we have time for today. We want to thank everyone for listening to our bi-weekly vlog. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to receive more content from the experts at Brand Symbol. And as always, we invite our listeners to reach out to us directly. We'd love to tell you more about Brand Symbol, learn about any upcoming branding initiatives you might have, and chat and answer any questions you might have about branding. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Katie. And thanks so much for making sure that we created this blog.